Good evening, YouTube. My name is Dan, and I'm the coach of your St. Louis Rampardos. Week 2 of the UCL is here, and the Rampardos have picked up their first win last week against Patters and the Newcastle Needle Kings. Now, if you missed the match, please make sure you check out the annotations on the screen and the links in the description to watch that epic battle where we're able to work out a nice little 3-0 victory with, of course, Hydra coming up with 3 kills at the end. Now, our focus has shifted to one of the biggest opponents and biggest matches of the season in the UCL, the New York Mankeys. Now, the Mankeys and the Rampardos have clashed before in previous leagues and in previous seasons, and the Rampardos have come out on top every single time. However, one of those times was very much so based on luck, and the other one of those times, we just had a very good strategy. So here we are with brand new teams facing off the phenomenally amazing battler that is ShadyPenguinn and the New York Mankeys. Now, I'm very confident in the fact that the Rampardos will be able to come out on top, and I'm going to explain the Pokemon that I'm bringing and why I'm bringing them in this video. I appreciate if you guys could hit that thumbs up button for me, if not for me, but at least for my St. Louis Rampardos tie that I'm rocking, which I had custom made, of course, for these press conferences. Now, before we jump into things too much further, I want to make a note here in the fact that both myself and ShadyPenguinn are actually playing this match a week earlier than we otherwise would be due to some traveling plans. Now, I could have easily taken a forfeit here from Shady and gotten an easy win, but I would rather lose to ShadyPenguinn than to take a cheap win with a forfeit. So that's just my take on it. So neither of us had the amount of time that we would have liked to prepare, but we're going to do our best to provide you guys a phenomenal matchup nevertheless. And I feel very good about my team, and I'm sure Shady feels good about his as well. Now, the Pokemon I'm going to be bringing today to counter Shady's team are 6 Pokemon that I feel like have the best matchup and the most versatility against the threats that Shady has. Let's run a little bit down ShadyPenguinn's roster here. He has the big threat that is Landorus T, which rocks an impressive attack stat, decent speed, the ability to be offensive or defense, of course, having Intimidate, getting up Stealth Rocks, U-turning, and doing a lot of other things, including stopping my Raikou from Volt Switching. His next pick was, of course, the most versatile Pokemon in the game, and one Pokemon I'm very familiar with in Mew. Now, Mew can be a bit intimidating because it's so hard to decide which set you should run on it, but I fully expect Shady to run either a defensive set with Defog to prevent hazards, or some sort of a support type set, potentially even a set that carries like an Expert Belt that kind of covers a wide range of coverage moves. That's typically what Mew can do, but it does a lot of other things, including Baton Passing and passing off Stat Boost. It can be a Will-O-Wisper and so on and so forth. So you'll see my team is designed to handle very different, various variations of Mew. So I'm very excited to take on Mew as well. Now, he also has Mega Pinsir, perhaps one of the best Mega Evolutions in the game. Without a speedy Pokemon that can top that 105 base speed, Pinsir is a big, big threat, as it OHKOs most things, especially after a Swords Dance and it gets up a substitute, so I have to be very careful for that. He also has Pokemon like Milotic, which Shady has also shown to be one of his favorite Pokemon, being a very big defensive or specially defensive presence, and I expect him to potentially run Mirror Coat on his Milotic this week. Now, he also has Pokemon like Jolteon and Blissey, Infernape, as well as Skuntank, Shiftry, Granbull, Girder, and Regirock. Now, he's got a lot of different options of Pokemon he can bring, but unfortunately he does not have a very reliable defogger aside from Mew, and he doesn't have a really good Rapid Spinner aside from his, actually he doesn't have a Rapid Spinner at all. So, with all that said, it could be very interesting here. I definitely expect him to bring the Mew, the Landorus T, and the Mega Pinsir. I think the Milotic is a very good bet as well. His last 2 Pokemon could be a question mark, perhaps somewhere between the Jolteon, the Blissey, the Infernape, and potentially even the Granbull as well, basically because of my Hydreigon. So, a couple different things there. I'm expecting also that Mew to be carrying Dazzling Gleam for Hydreigon, so potentially a Choice Scarf Mew. So again, there's a lot of different scenarios here that I've thought about, so you'll see that my team build is meant to be as versatile as possible to handle all of the threats that Shady has. Now, Shady has a phenomenal team, so this is going to be a very, very big challenge, especially early on the season where we're all still learning our teams and getting adapted to them. Because I can tell you, I've only used a lot of these Pokemon that I'm bringing one time, and that was against Patters. I'm not someone who plays the higher tiers too frequently, so a lot of these Pokemon I've never actually used before. So leading off our lineup once again, didn't even see any action last week, of course, sat in the back the entire match, which is very similar to how I've used big sweeping threats like Terrakion in the past. It is Mega Metagross. Now we are going to be running Mega Metagross yet again, and hopefully this time, well, hopefully it doesn't have to see battle this time, but if it does have to see battle, hopefully it's able to put in work as we've anticipated all season. We're actually running just enough speed investment on this thing to make sure I can outspeed any form of Mega Pinsir at that base 105, and actually outspeed max speed Infernape as well, which tops at 108 speed. So we have a little bit of investment in our HP just to kind of make up there, because I'm not someone who makes 252 splits on most Pokemon. I like to calculate the speed EVs and make sure I'm doing the right thing and outpacing the right Pokemon. We're rocking Rock Slide for a couple different things, mainly the Mega Pinsir. We also have Meteor Mash to hit things hard. I originally had Hammer Arm, but I think Meteor Mash is better as it does 2-hit KO the Blissey anyway, and hits everything else pretty hard. Thunder Punch and Ice Punch. So Thunder Punch is obviously for the Milotic. It is a 2-hit KO, and of course the Ice Punch, which is for the Landorus T, which luckily for us, we actually have the Clear Body, so we can actually take one Intimidate. Doesn't do anything to us. We can Mega Evolve and hit the Landorus T, but of course it is a bit risky because it does outspeed us naturally, so we do have to be aware of that. Now our next Pokemon is going to make its debut this week in the UCL. It is Conkeldurr, something that Shady knows very, very well. Now Conkeldurr is running an Assault Vest with max attack and max special defense. I'm also running Ice Punch, Knockoff, Drain Punch, and Power Up Punch. I have Guts on this as well, so I'll be able to take burns from that Milotic and actually boost my attack stat. Now, you might be wondering why I'm running Power Up Punch, which is a little bit uncommon on a Pokemon like this. Typically, you'd run another coverage move, but Power Up Punch, in my opinion, is going to allow me to get that extra attack boost that I might need to be able to take out threats like the Landorus or the Milotic, which can otherwise recover stall me. So if I were to get burned, I have a really good matchup against the Milotic just because I have such bulk, and then those Drain Punches are going to be recovering a lot of HP back. I like the ability for Conkeldurr to win one-on-one against a Milotic. Now, one thing I do have to be careful of is Psyshock from Mew, as my knockoff isn't going to be able to OHKO a Mew. But with Stealth Rocks, Power Up Punch, and then knockoff, I think I could take down most variants of Mew, which is nice. The next Pokemon we're going to be rocking, very similar to last week, is going to be Raikou again. Now, Shady has ran his Milotic in other leagues, and he has faced Raikou multiple times, and it's done a lot of work against him. The specific set that I remember is a Sub-Calm Mindset, which is able to beat out Shady before, but in this case, I'm going to be rocking an Assault Vest Raikou, rocking Volt Switch and Thunderbolt, Hidden Power Ice, and Shadow Ball for the Mew. Now, the reason why I didn't want to run a setup Raikou is just because he has a couple threats that are able to hit Raikou pretty hard with ground-type attacks, like Mega Pinsir, like Landorus T, and so on and so forth. I thought about Air Balloon, but I did like the Assault Vest, especially when paired up against Pokemon like Jolteon, potentially being able to stop my Volt Switches, Pokemon like Milotic as well, which I'm going to be able to hit really hard back, although I am worried about Mirror Coat, so don't be surprised if I scout with Shadow Ball and to see if he has that Mirror Coat, or Hard Switch out instead of Volt Switch. Now, he does, our next Pokemon is going to be our star from last week against Patters, which of course is Hydreigon, our three-headed dragon. Now, Hydreigon this week is running a Choice Scarf again, and the reason for that is I think that the Choice Scarf is typically one of the better items, and Shady does have a pretty quick team, so I didn't want to end up being too much slower than his Pokemon. With the Choice Scarf, it allows us to outpace everything on his team that doesn't have a Choice Scarf, including that Landorus T, which is nice. We're running kind of a mix Hydreigon with Superpower, U-Turn, Dark Pulse, and Hidden Power Ice, with enough investment that we can take out most Landorus Ts with that HP Ice. We also have the Dark Pulse for the Mew. We have the U-Turn for momentum, so we don't kind of get caught up in a bad situation. And of course, the Superpower, which is designed for that Blissey to catch it. It does not OHKO the Blissey, but it will do a tremendous amount of damage to it and allow us to take it out if it's already been weakened a little bit. So I am actually not carrying the Draco Meteor this week. I wanted to fit it in the set, but I felt that U-Turn was more valuable, especially with the Choice Scarfer, because I'll be able to kind of switch around. And you might be predicting the Draco Meteor anyway. Our next Pokemon, and the Pokemon I expect to actually do the most work this week, and I'm very excited to bring again, is going to be Mesprit. Now, I did mention that Mesprit was our last pick overall, and the last pick overall in the UCL draft entirely in the NU tier, and so far it's been very good. It was able to set up Stealth Rocks last week against Patters and paralyze an otherwise problematic Mismagius. This week we're going to be running Ice Beam on it, which does OHKO a lot of different variants of Landorus T. He'd have to have a very, very specific EV spread on that Landorus T to live the Ice Beam. I'm also carrying Stealth Rocks, of course, to get residual damage on his Pokemon and potentially break Focus Sashes from Pokemon like Infernape. I also have the Psyshock as well, which is going to hurt that Infernape and the Blissey a little bit better. And of course, Knockoff is our last move in case the Mew decides to come in, or I can knock off some of his items, get rid of some Scarfs, and so on and so forth. Now, I expect Mesprit to be very, very good in this matchup, and I'm anticipating it to be our lead yet again, because it does match up well against Landorus T, Infernape. It can handle Mega Pinsir potentially. It can handle the Jolteon. I mean, it really matches up very well against a lot of his team, and I'm thinking that Mesprit is going to be most likely our lead, but it's going to depend on which Pokemon he brings. I really like how Mesprit is set up this week, running max HP, max defense, bold nature to handle hits a little bit better from that Landorus T matchup, and also Pokemon like Mega Pinsir and Infernape and so on and so forth. Our last Pokemon is also physically defensive, and it is, of course, the Water-type beast that is Vaporeon. Now, Vaporeon is, again, running max physically defensive nature with max HP as well, carrying Wish, Scald, Baton Pass, and, of course, Heal Bell. Now, I originally had Ice Beam on this to be able to take out Landorus T's as well, but I felt that the Heal Bell was going to be more useful to my team, and the fact that I can play a little bit more reckless with Pokemon like Metagross, and I don't have to worry so much about the Scald burns from Milotic. Milotic is always a problem to take down, so I thought it was very important to be able to have a backup plan in case Metagross does get burned, in case Hydreigon gets burned, or something like that. Obviously, I don't mind Conkeldurr getting burned, but the other Pokemon I would like for them to be healed up and not have to worry about Paralysis spam from Blissey, Toxic spam from Blissey, and so on and so forth. So, plus we also have this Mew, and you never really know what Mew is going to do. So, that is going to be our lineup. Again, I am definitely expecting to get my Mesprit in there early. I have a good matchup against the Landorus T. I could either Ice Beam and kill it, or I can set up my own rocks and predict his U-turn out, or something like that. He also has to be very, very careful, especially if I lead with Mesprit, because I could, you know, be scarfed and things like that. So, Shady knows that I play for the lead matchup. In previous matches, I planned for that lead matchup, so he's going to probably try to counter me on that one. But I think we have a decent matchup. This is going to be a very challenging week, guys, but I'm very excited for this week, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So, if you guys enjoy this video, you like my team analysis, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button for me, and don't forget to check out Shady's channel in the link below. Of course, I wish you the best of luck, ShadyPenguinn, but hopefully the Rampardos can head smash their way to a nice 2-0 start in the UCL. That's going to be it for me. My name is Dan. I also go by aDrive, and I'm going to get the heck out of here. Peace.